4-H. So 4-H, go fuck yourself until further notice. The FFA, however, yes.
I'm Miguel Iturrate on the Cage Rage podcast, representing the International Brotherhood of Prize Fighters.
Chadillac with the Cage Rage podcast, and I have no pants on. That's right. I'm back with you today to do the Cage Rage podcast with no pants on. It's a new thing we're doing. We've decided that we're going to do our podcasts for a little while. We don't know how long. As long as we feel like it. Maybe just today. And it might be maybe the next few podcasts, maybe tomorrow too. Maybe the rest of the week, maybe the rest of the month, maybe the rest of the year with no pants on. Miguel is doing something with Mittens. Mittens is our new mascot in Costa Rica. Although he is in Costa Rica, he still wears mittens because it's cold. Miguel, please take your pants off. You're ruining the whole theme of the show.
Off. Don't worry.
Okay, he's got his pants off now. So, hey, listen, welcome back to the Cage Rage podcast. Miguel, how you doing today?
Doing real well. Glad to be back on the Cage Rage podcast. I've been having fun with MMA, but we're going to try a little bit of a different subject here with the women's MMA, and we're going to go across MMA and boxing and just kind of give the women some credit in the combat sports and stuff. We haven't really talked about them too much, and I think it's time, right?
Yeah, it's about time. You know, it's something that we haven't been trying to avoid it. It's just that we wanted to pay them homage and respect and do it in the right way because it's something that took them a really long time to get any kind of credit for. When women first started fighting, women like Becky Levi, a close personal friend of ours, and Becky's from right here in good old Indiana as well, Fort Wayne. Hi, Becky. How you doing? I know she watches the show. She's going to be on soon with us. Becky and Dan Severin trained together. They did a show called Danger Zone, and she was one of the very first women fighters. And she kind of came up through the ranks, and she was a bigger woman and didn't have a lot of women to fight. And so Becky had to kind of do whatever she had to do to get in the ring. And a lot of times she faced the idea of the cat fight, as she used to call it. And it really used to piss her off that she was a serious martial artist who really wanted to do NHB fighting, and she took it seriously. And all that most of the promoters wanted was, you know, girls in bikinis to get up and do, you know, oil fighting between the fights or pillow fights or, you know, whatever. And I'm not even saying that there's anything necessarily wrong with that for people who want that kind of thing. Hey, you know, I don't have any problem with, you know, butts and boobs, but, you know, for a sport and for the sake of defending the feminist in me, I have to say that women deserve to be respected in the sport as athletes. The first real show to ever feature women exclusively was done in Evansville, Indiana at Hook and Shoot. Miguel was a huge part of that. That show was called Revolution, I believe, in Hook and Shoot. You can find that online, I'm sure. And it was an explosion, and it started female MMA, more or less. From there, we jump ahead, and we have extreme fighters. One of my very favorite fighters in all of MMA, men, women, cats, dogs, whatever, mittens. Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I believe if Joanna Jędrzejczyk had an easier name to pronounce, or if they could have come up with a way to give her some type of nickname, that she would have been more famous. I said from Jump Street that as soon as I saw her fight, I was amazed by her, and I said, if they can come up with some kind of way to say her name easier, that it will do a great deal to expedite her fame and fortune. And I don't think they ever did that right. I don't think they ever really produced her right. For one thing, they tried to make her a beauty queen. I just don't understand that. I don't understand why men can go out there and we can be meatheads, but women have to be beauty queens and wear lipstick and makeup and get their hair done before they do their headshots or before they do their weigh-ins. It's disrespectful to them. I never have appreciated and approved of that. The ADCC, stepping across boundaries, was the first grappling tournament that really invited women in, paid them, showed them a great deal of respect, searched for them. Miguel was a huge part of that as well. So having said all of that, I know Miguel is dying to talk about Holly Holmes, one of his very favorites, and I love the farmer's daughter, the preacher's daughter as well. So take it away, Miguel. Tell us about the preacher's daughter, and tell us about women's MMA, boxing, the whole thing. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I love the subject. I think it's a big time thing. My hat's off to my own partner, Jeff Osborne, for the Hook and Shoot Revolution show. It was his brainchild. He made it happen. I was actually sort of against it at the beginning. There's still a lot of work to do on the men's side, in my opinion. But we did the show. He scheduled it, and we did the show. And I have to say that from the very first show, the women did win me over. Just from the basics of it, that every goddamn woman showed up with a friggin' headshot picture and blood work and all the stuff that we asked for. And with men, that's always a zoo. You know what I mean? And these girls, I think it was a show of how much they wanted to be treated like professionals, right? They didn't.
Stop right there. Let me cut. Stop. Back the fuck up. Let me point something out to anyone who doesn't know, who's never promoted a show, how huge that is. He just said every woman.
I mean, the UFC doesn't deal with that, right?
Every woman showed up. First of all, every woman that was supposed to fight showed up. That's a goddamn miracle. They showed up on time. They paid for their own travel back then. They brought headshots. They showed up with their blood work, all of the information they were supposed to have. That's a goddamn miracle. If you would have asked 500 men to do that, you might have had 30 show up. And I'm not exaggerating. You might have had 30 out of 500 that would have done that in a professional fight in 2000. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, the women showed up, and I think that was the first sign that that they deserve respect. They really wanted that respect, and they were willing to do what men did. And then, at the end of the day, they got in a freaking ring and punched each other in the face, right? So they were really willing to do whatever it took, to really be respected for that. So they won me over very early. It wasn't far after that, that we were trying to schedule fights, and at the same time, took women to Bodog and a few of the other things like that. We did get women into the ADCC. Unfortunately, the big paydays on the men's side, I wasn't able to get the sponsorship to match them on the women's side at the time. But it was a breakthrough for the women to go ahead and be able to compete at that. And again, we fill weight classes, we fill brackets with women, so that they were there. And I think that's the real reason for this podcast, in my opinion, is just to kind of celebrate, the women of combat sports. Because in boxing, the boxing stuff is really not that much further along than the MMA stuff in terms of, where the women are in terms of paydays, where the women are in terms of, mainstream attention. It's not there yet, boxing, and the competition is there. And that's the thing, is I think the women are skill-wise, and actually they have a compelling product of fight. Like, for example, in the NBA, if you like basketball, and you're a real basketball purist, you could watch a WNBA game similar to like watching a good college game or whatever, because the skill level is there. They really are there. And then consider that, we talked about it in a previous podcast about ethnicity, how is it unusual that an Italian roots for an Italian and a black person roots for a black person, Same thing. When you bring women in, you bring women into the fold of combat sports. There will be women who are more compelled by watching other women compete. That opens up a whole new door. So they're real pioneers. But the fact is they have a product that's compelling. They are competing in a sport, and it is something that's very, very, very watchable. And the women, to me, in both sports, are more technical than the men. Just because they maybe don't are as strong overall, and maybe we're more flexible also. So even in MMA, that opens up interesting groundwork and things like that. That's a little bit different. So you can actually see an expansion of technique and stuff. It's very technical fighting, but it's done at a high level. Sure, you can still get fighting in general or that concept and stuff where they're just trying to sell a gimmick. But that's not what's going on in the sport of MMA. That's why I think his daughter Holly Holm really deserves something. Just all I can give her is recognition and help her, But if you judge the fact that she is close to 40 professional boxing fights, including world title level fights where she won world title in multiple weight classes. So when you take, Holly Holm's losses in boxing, and again, you're talking about world level. She took a loss to Anne-Sophie Mathis. Watch this fight on YouTube. Go and watch it, because what we saw with Holly Holm in MMA, where she brings heart and where she's been hurt and she keeps fighting and stuff like that. This is a knockout. This is a knockout where Holm gets up and she's getting trashed. I mean, she's getting hit, and she actually falls back and she has an arm trapped in the ropes, so she can't even protect herself. And she's sitting there open, and the other girl is teeing off on her. And it shows every bit of the heart that this girl has. And then you consider that she won the rematch. So you're talking about a girl who's writing elite stories in boxing and then crosses over to MMA. And if you look at it and you take her career of boxing and MMA and you juxtapose them, you see that she delved in lower level MMA while boxing. And then she took a loss in MMA and said, I'm going back. She did this sequence of fights with Anne-Sophie Mathis to seal the deal in boxing. And then when she was ready, she came over to MMA and competed at a high level again. So she tasted it, but recognized the potential for the high level activity, not just gimmicky paydays or, hey, I fight on the side on weekends and, fill up a casino in Arizona. This was a girl with a big idea. And when she came over, and I mean, basically what she did is she took Ronda Rousey to school. She took Ronda, who was a competitor in judo and a savant at fighting the way she crossed over, but she took her to school. That was a downtown ass beating, and it came from just a superior fighter at what they did. She was so much more advanced than Rousey as a fighter that that was the conclusion you were getting. And then watch her fight with Cyborg. She loses, but never stops fighting, right?
Right.
But if you consider there isn't a man in boxing who could come over to MMA and be a champion.
Not a one. Not. You're exactly right.
You start with Mayweather. Mayweather begins with luring fighters to do his sport and not traveling to the other thing. It's too elite. It's too elite of a specialty, the boxing is, for them to be able to adjust all the other things. So it starts with it's a very different sport, and you have to accept that, right? So consider no boxer is ever going to win an MMA world title.
I totally agree with you, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but it begs the question: does that have as much to do with the fact that women's MMA is not as far along as men's MMA is? Or does that have to do with Holly Holmes being that great of an athlete that she was just able to step over the boundary and beat what was at the time supposedly the most unbeatable, greatest women's MMA athlete of all time?
Here's the thing: is I think you're right. I think Holly Holm came at the right time. It was the right place in the right time. I think if the sports continue to develop the way they're developing, the specialties are going to be so hyper advanced that nobody's going to be able to cross over. Just like on the men's side, you're not going to get an MMA guy who's going to go over and be a boxing champion. That's not going to happen either.
Yeah.
John Jones can say all he wants to about how in 2 years he can compete boxing. He's nuts. Ain't going to happen. If not, show me. Just show me. Stop talking about it.
I want to see it.
It has to be done to be believed. I don't believe it can be done. Right? So, with that said, Holm gets a special spot. She did what is never going to be done again.
Yeah.
And, maybe benefit a little bit from a lack of real competition, but she did do it the right way. We talked about it. She fought 10 MMA fights. She'd won her share of MMA fights. That to me is putting in the work. It's not a McGregor fight Mayweather. She didn't come right over and fight Ronda Rousey, which she probably could have and won in the style of fight that they fought. And because Holm has a complete concept as a martial artist of a game plan and what to do, and and the back and forth. She game planned Ronda Rousey to death.
Miguel, was it just me? I mean, was I the only person that looked at that fight from the moment they made it and said, why on earth are they going to get Ronda's ass beat like that? Or did they actually believe that did Dana believe Ronda was going to go out there and kick Holly's ass? Did they believe her height?
I think
you could watch Ronda Rousey. You could watch Ronda Rousey for 2 minutes and go, okay, there are 4 major holes in her game right now that any fighter can exploit if they train to beat her for 6 weeks. And they're kind of a complete package. A good fighter that they can exploit those holes.
No, you gotta be. Here's the deal, Ronda. Ronda deserves her place too. Ronda was.
I'm not taking that away from her.
Ronda's a special athlete. I don't know.
She's a specialized athlete.
She's trained very well. She's disciplined. At the end of the day, she won a judo bronze medal or something like that.
I agree. She's fantastic.
Medal, right? But for the competition level that she's at, she's an elite athlete, right?
I totally agree. I'm not taking that away from her. I'm simply saying
the advantage she had over all the little girls that she's armbarred in about a minute and a half. A couple of them, like Kat Zingano or whatever, may have made a mistake in the fight. But in the early going, she was just outclassing girls with what she knew, right?
Yeah, but wait a minute. But wait.
Holly Holm entered the fight canceling all of that out on Ronda. She was facing a physical equal.
Well, what happened is this. First of all, Holly, in face-off, Ronda's always trying to mean mug everybody and intimidate people, and it worked. And Holly just stood up, and Holly's got broad shoulders, and she's tall, and she's long, and she stuck her arm out. And when she did, Ronda realized, holy shit, this girl can actually jab me, and I can't get inside her jab. So Ronda kind of ducked up under and was like, doing that mean mug thing. And Holly just kind of like, boom, and got on her. And you saw Ronda almost, she just kind of shrank in front of the cameras at that moment. And I knew right then, which I knew when the match was made, she was dead. But I knew right then, I was like, man, bet everything you have on Holm. Bet everything you have. I thought it would be a first round, though. I didn't think it would take 2 rounds. And then the moment that the bell rang, Ronda came running across and Holm went, bam! Stiffed her and stepped at an angle. The fight was over. The fight was over in 10 seconds. Ronda had a concussion in the first jab that she took. If you rewatch that fight 10 times, you can see that Ronda's eyes are glassed over. Her eyes are completely red. She has no idea what's going on, and she never ever got her step back after that first jab. She's completely out of it.
Yeah. In another podcast, you brought up Mike Tyson, comparing him to Conor McGregor, and it's
Okay, fair enough.
We came to the conclusion that it wasn't quite the right way to compare the two, but maybe Ronda and Tyson is a good way to compare them, because that's the first person that had an answer for what Ronda did, and then Ronda unraveled, and that's what Tyson always really did. Never got up off the floor to win one, So Ronda, she's found herself looking for answers in a fight and had none. And I think Holm exposed that, because now Holm cancels out her physical gifts, because she's also a physical specimen. You know what I mean? She's an athlete all the way.
She's huge.
She cancels that out. You mentioned it also, that the mind games where Ronda dominated the mind games, where everybody, it got to be where Ronda was like, I've already beat no one, and it was arrogance. It turned from confidence to arrogance, and Holm rode that perfectly. Right, so Holm owned the mind games because she didn't let anything get to her, and she let Ronda almost overplay her mind to where the point where it wasn't working anymore. Right, so the mind games gone, the physical aspect equalized. Now let's talk about combat resume. Okay, judo's judo, but judo's such a specialization. I don't care how much judo you do. When you come into MMA, it's a little bit different. Boxing
definitely
has a little bit more of that, and 40 professional boxing fights, so many at a high level. She was just far more advanced as a martial artist.
That's a big deal.
You're right. I think the writing was on the wall, but I don't think Dana or Ronda bought it. I think that they thought that this was it. This is the one that nobody's going to be able to beat her, the unbeatable one, because that's what the market. The marketing begs for that. You want that. The wise observer of the sport knows that's only a window of opportunity. You may have a window where a guy or a girl was the perfect fighter that day, but the sustain of, can they do that for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, the ups and downs and stuff, it's not possible what they want with the marketing, right? And Ronda already outplayed her hand as the dominant, like nobody can be. You don't do that. You shouldn't. If she had been slightly more respectful of Holm, the mind games might have worked a little bit.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? If she had said, she's good, but I'm still the best. But no, she was like, she's trash just like everybody else. And Holmes said, you know what? No, I ain't.
Yeah, and not to mention Greg Jackson versus versus what's his name that Ronda had? What was his name?
Eddie,
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
That guy that's no longer anywhere on anyone's radar for any reason at all.
Look, here, I don't want to put anyone down, especially when you get into the level of scrutiny that Ronda, achieved.
Okay,
Ronda
fair enough on that. Fair enough.
Made crossover there. So, the guy really didn't have the depth of resume. Jackson's a guy who's, been around for years and stuff. There are people who criticize Jackson. I know a very high-level UFC fighter who said to me, he goes, I just don't buy anything he ever says because he's never fought. And then there are guys that think the guy's a savant and he teaches and he didn't need to fight because he's observed, But no trainer is for everybody. So
I agree with that
the thing
too.
is you got to have the right person for yourself. Holm was very, very confident in her team. And I think Ronda had gotten to the point where she thinks, I could have done it with anybody. I don't need this guy. When people say, is that guy a weak link? She's stuck with him. That's arrogance, or a powerful bond, but I don't know that bond was there. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
She's not hanging out with him now.
Rousey definitely bought in her own hype, and that's where you get the mega fall. And that's why I'm happy for her. You don't want somebody to be embarrassed. She was embarrassed pretty publicly.
Absolutely. Look, I watched.
I don't want to carry that forever, so I'm proud of her for really. And she's done. I've watched a little bit of her WWE stuff. She's done an astoundingly good job of being respectful to the sport, like she wasn't in MMA. She's been kind of given the rowdy Ronda, which is a true legacy. I mean, if you consider pro wrestling.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
In the position Roddy Piper has in history, That's a nice legacy to get handed.
That's big.
The same logo, the same lettering, the same stuff. So she got given a carpet, a carpet treatment, red carpet treatment coming in. The ladies of the sport have given her a good position and stuff. They've sold her over, and she's done the transition real well. Her judo's worked real well because it gives her explosive moves that very few people have seen. You know what I mean? In the pro wrestling ring.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of that.
But she's outclassed with Holly Holm.
And I want to say this too. I think she is the best thing that ever could have happened for women's MMA in that time. Without her doing what she did in that time period, women's MMA would still be. It would be a fledgling bird trying to find a way to take flight. And here's why. Here's why. We've talked about women's boxing, and they tried all kinds of little tricks and things to get it going. Here's the only female boxer I can name in all the history of boxing. This is literally the only female boxer I can name, and this is a disgrace for me to say this. Christy Martin.
Oh my God! You can name Layla Ali.
Oh, of course, Layla Ali, but I mean, other than that's a given. But Christy Martin is really the only. That's really the only girl I can just dependably name. If somebody goes, name a female boxer right now, Christy Martin. I mean, besides Layla Ali, yeah, obviously. But
no, we have to. Here's the deal with Ronda was necessary in MMA, and I'm grateful for her. But she was that meteoric rise and fall kind of thing, where everybody else kind of operated at the sport. Just operating on the sport, there wasn't a story compelling enough to make it big and mainstream yet.
Right.
As good as the hardworking girls that we knew, like Tara LaRose and people like that. Even when you got to the UFC level, Kat Zingano's and people like that, girls who were already very highly professional and I don't know that they're mainstream people yet. I think Ronda captured that and did that for, kind of carried the sword. My only regret is I wish there'd been some other way she could do it. Because the way, like, for example, just her approach to the pro wrestling thing where she's being respectful of what she's walking into. That's not what Ronda did in MMA. And to me, the women who did it in the hook and shoot gyms and in, places much smaller and stuff like that, they really do deserve respect. I'm not talking about girls that did, topless fights or fights in Jello. I'm talking about real MMA.
Right, absolutely.
Girls showed up, 8 men fights booked on each side, and they went into the ring, fucking put their blinders on, and they went into the ring and they put on a show. And you know what? A lot of times when that has happened, the fight of the night is the girls.
Well, okay,
So the bottom line is Ronda. I would receive Ronda a lot better in her place in MMA history a lot better if she had some type of deference at all and respect at all to the people that came before, and she didn't. She shit on that. And that cost her, in my book, in my opinion, I mean, it didn't cost her in the bank. She made her money, and she did all that, and at the end of the day, I think, any woman, MMA fighter now who sees her, is going to shake her hand anyway and thank her and stuff like that, and they would probably have, but I think publicly when she was coming up, she didn't take the approach that made her likable. And that's one of the things that I didn't like. I wish that would be different. Other than that, Ronda was very necessary. We moved on. But coming back around, since we're doing a tribute to the women, really, I just want to single out Holly Holm as an athlete, man or woman, that we'll never see again. We're never going to see that. A person who's achieved what she's achieved in 2 sports that are so specialized already. It's definitely something that she probably gotten the credit for. She deserves. She's and her best fight she ever had may have been her long.
Yeah. So if we move on from that, we look at is it December that we see Holly fight again, and she's going to fight Amanda Nunes? Is that?
No, you're way off, buddy. In December, Amanda Nunes is fighting Cyborg.
Oh, she's fighting Cyborg in December. Who does Holly fight?
I don't think Holly has a fight booked. I'm going to go check that for you right now.
Okay, I thought Holly had someone booked to fight as well.
Maybe. I could be wrong. Right now, I don't see one on the schedule for her.
Okay, well, maybe she's just taking time off, or maybe she's ready to retire. I don't know. She deserves it.
Yeah,
Whatever. She deserves to be compensated well, and I hope she has been. I'm not sure that they ever gave her that huge payday. And then, after she beats Ronda in such a crushing victory, that she didn't get paid what she should have been paid for that, because they didn't expect her to win. So they gave her kibbles and bits for it. And then after that, they put her in and got her beaten. Her next fight was Nunez, right?
No, Tate. She fought Misha Tate and lost the belt, and then there was a
oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Sorry, you cut out on me there, Miguel. Sorry. So she fought Misha. Oh yeah, Misha just signed with One, so she's doing some good stuff there now. I love Misha, and and again, that goes back to when Ronda could have on Tough. Ronda could have, in some way, she could have shown some kind of effort to show some kind of condolence and said, okay, yeah, this is sport, and yeah, this is entertainment. Misha's not all terrible, but she never ever conceded anything at all. It was always she always had to be a jerk about everything, and that's what everyone wants to see that jerk fall. So
yeah, even if in her arrogance she just said, "Thanks, ladies, for getting us out of the woods and into the the gyms and stuff like that, but I'm here to take us to the fucking arenas." Even if that was her attitude, but it wasn't. It was like, nobody can hang with me. I'm the best. It's like, I don't like it. It was very white trashy to me. I know that's a weird justification and stuff, but it's like, I like I said, she's just a more mature person, and in pro wrestling, she's showing me star power and stuff. I didn't buy her act in MMA. I didn't like her, and in pro wrestling, I'm starting to like her and see what she's been able to do, and it's because she's been doing the work too. She's not a girl who's shy about the work, so
she's a good actor. She was great in Mile 22. She's a good actor. She really is.
Here's the thing. I mean, she did a couple of crossover appearances I saw on Entourage and stuff like that, and she's an athlete. And next to Hollywood women, she's going to look athletic and big and almost thick and muscular and stuff like that. So I think the roles for her are going to be limited. The idea of her, going to Hollywood and where's the what was the name of the other little girl that went to Hollywood before the other MMA girl that friggin' Strikeforce used.
Gina.
Gina Carano.
Carano, yeah.
Even Carano, who's more attractive than Ronda.
Yeah.
But again, now you're talking about 145-pound women. Most of those Hollywood types are 90 pounds or some shit like that. So there's nothing wrong with her. And I'm not.
Yeah, they can both play the tough woman in the shoot 'em up movie, which is what Ronda's done well. But anyways, enough of that shit. So let's talk about the best female fighter on the planet right now, which is Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And how awesome she is, and how great she is, and I hate that they keep trying to sell her as this beautiful prom queen. Where's Joanna go from here? Because she's moving up weight, right? And are they doing away with the straw weight, or what are they going to do with that? What's the situation there? How's all this working out?
No, I think on the women's side, the lower weight classes are probably safe. I can't say that with 100% certainty, but I think they're safe. I think the 125-pound men, they already put years into it. They weren't fond of it to begin with. They'd had their dominant champion beat. It was a nice spot for them to maybe sunset it for a little bit. It'll be back. Remember, they got rid of the 155-pound weight class around the time Jens Pulver was champion, and BJ Penn was involved in the return of that weight class and stuff like that. So they can do whatever they want. The 125-pound on the men's side's gone. On the women's side, I don't think so, because I think you're talking about very marketable people. You know, when we were talking a little bit about Hollywood and Ronda and Carano and stuff, you know, one of the things that we mentioned was how they're athletes and they're going to look a lot bigger and stuff like that. In those movies, you know, if you got like a Tom Cruise guy, right? Tom Cruise is supposed, 5'4", 5'5", he's a little guy, right? Now if he's the star of your movie and he's an action hero, that dictates that you probably can't have too many 6'3" dudes walking around on set with him.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the entire cast has to be done. So now I think, men Mighty Mouse's size are small men, no matter what. You know, your average unathletic 5'10", 180-pound guy looks at Demetrius Johnson and says, "This is a little," you know what I mean? So, but on the women's side, I think you've got marketability at 150 pounds and 125 pounds. Michelle Waterson,
right, sure.
A couple of the other girls, they like to bring them along that way. Joanna breaks that mold, and I think you're right. I think they try to stick her into that mold, and it doesn't work for her. She's moving up to 125. She's got a tough fight in Shevchenko. You know, the bottom line is just Shevchenko's coming down in weight, so we're going to find out a little bit about both of them. I think if you consider it on a worldwide level, you're talking about Poland versus Russia, which to me is a rivalry. Every time those guys fight,
big.
You know, that's what you fight. Shevchenko lists Peru is like where she's from, so I mean I don't know what the mix up there, but she's a Russian girl to me, and you know. It becomes marketable at 125 pounds. I think the cream of the women right now, what is on the marketing end, is you got to look at Amanda Nunes, the 135-pound champion, and she's set on on December 29th to fight Christiane Justino, Cyborg. And Cyborg is the elephant in the room, right? She's the one that is the #1 girl now. The toughest, pound for pound, so to speak,
So what does she do to Amanda?
Amanda's in that game.
You think?
Amanda's crazy. Amanda's in that game. Amanda's a real fighter. Remember, there's nothing,
I'm not saying she's not, but how much bigger is Cyborg than Amanda in walking weight?
Amanda's a pro. So when she's the 135-pound champion, you're talking about 140-something pound women that cuts down. She's not a little girl. So, the size, it starts to balance itself out. Is Cyborg huge? Cyborg's huge. She's big. She's bigger than 145-pound men, in terms of stature, size, length, and things like that. But Nunes is game. And to me, it's all about the mindset, Justino's been on top and, now facing a challenge and stuff. She fought Holm and fought a real challenge there. Now she's facing another one. At some point, that wears on you a little bit. You can only be on top so long, right? And Nunes, what I like about Nunes is Nunes was the one selected for the Ronda Rousey comeback. After Holm humiliated her, they didn't really repackage her in any way. They were like, that was a fluke. Here she is, #1 on top again. And Nunes was so ready and so prepared. And I don't think people...
And so insulted.
Realize, but I don't think you realize when all the lights are on and under that scrutiny, how much pressure you can put on yourself and how many times people are in that position and don't perform, right? We see that more often. But she did exactly... She was Conor McGregor-like in doing what she said she was going to do.
Right.
She did exactly what she was going to do. She said, no, Rousey, go back to doing whatever you were doing. This is not your house anymore, and you are old news. And she dispatched in a couple minutes, and, it was beautiful. Her, just trying to cut the crowd out and stuff like that. But so I consider the confidence and the mind of Amanda Nunes is in this fight. She's not walking in there thinking, I can't beat her. She's in this fight, and that makes the fight right there. That is a lot of difference.
Yeah, when you consider that the press conference afterwards for Amanda Nunes was a guy sitting in a metal chair in front of her with a little tape recorder, and another guy with a microphone interviewing the new champion of the world who just dismantled Ronda Rousey. She was the champion of the world, but Ronda was the #1 challenger, and she was supposed to come back and destroy her. And the posters were all Ronda Rousey and Amanda Nunes. And, that was so disrespectful and insulting to her that, she absolutely was on a mission to hurt Ronda. And, man, she did just that. She didn't just silence her. She said, "You're retired and you're not ever coming back into this octagon again. Don't you dare speak my name. Don't ever come back again." And unless Ronda cut 20 pounds, there's no way she could come back and compete again. Not that she would. She doesn't need to. It'd be silly to do, but
Yeah, that's why I'm glad she found another gig. I think you're right. I don't think Ronda has a good way to come back after that beating. I think it was very much, like you said, it was very definitive. The way Nunes, took her apart and let her know, look, unless you change some things, you keep coming back that same old tired story, you're going to keep getting the same treatment. And it went from second round to 2 minutes. It's going to get worse. So for that, I give her full credit of being
absolutely.
I give her full credit as being, we're talking about women's combat sports here and stuff. Amanda Nunes, Joanne Judges, a certain level, Holly Holm, some of these people we're talking about, I used to refer to Tara LaRosa this way, from the old days.
Hey, Tara LaRosa, I'm a huge fan. That's a tough woman.
You talk about them as fighters, period.
Period.
You don't even need the caveat. You don't even need the caveat of men or women's fighters and stuff
You're
like that.
You're absolutely right.
Fighters say, I'm a fighter at hard fight. We'd be fighting anyway, even if it wasn't for money, because we're fighters inside and stuff like that. These elite women have that, whatever that is. It's there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hats off to Tara LaRosa. I see her every now on Facebook and talk to her once in a while, and she's doing really well, living her life and doing her thing. And I forget where she's at now. I think she may have even went back to Jersey for a while, but she was still training, and she's offering, for what it's worth, she's offering self-defense classes and stuff like that for women. So get in on that while you can, because Tara is absolutely a fantastic trainer, and she's a beast.
I saw her take a knife away from Mark Birch one time.
Wow, that's impressive. Mark, for those who don't know, Mark Birch is 6'7", 320 probably. He's got a hand like a baseball mitt. His forearms are as big around as my thighs. Mark was a great guy. He's massive. He's a mountain of a man. He's another Wisniewski guy. Yeah. So he trained hard.
Birch cut weight in Costa Rica. He cut weight because he had to get to 265. This guy there was no sauna in the hotel because we're almost on the equator. The whole country is really like a sauna, but there was no concentrated sauna because the hotels didn't have that pool. They had everything, but not a sauna. No one wants a hot room there, right? Birch took a porta potty and sat it in the middle of a tennis field with the sun baking in it and sat in the thing for hours. That was his sauna.
Oh, that's brutal. Brutal. That was a beautiful that was a beautiful trip. That was a really good one. I built the
we got a lot of that. Thanks.
Had a good time. Other than, remember, they had the entertainment where you were supposed to carry the quarter between your cheeks, and no one showed up for that one. Never mind. You were too wasted to remember, I'm sure, but it was bad. No one was involved. Well, they tried to dry us out by putting us on a dry island, and that just didn't go over very well.
Well, let's get back on subject.
Yeah. So anyways, so here's the deal, okay? So Tara LaRosa, you're a badass. You always were. You always will be, and we love and respect you as #1 an athlete, #2 a fighter, #3 a woman. and always as a really close friend. Ronda Rousey, we wish you the best for whatever that's worth, and respect what you did for the game, even though some of it was questionable. But out with the old and in with the new. So we've got Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She's getting ready to do this big fight. So it's Poland and it's Poland versus Russia. That's a thing. And you've got, going up in weight and coming down in weight. I don't see that as being a good thing for Joanna. But we'll see how she performs. And maybe she looks better because maybe cutting that weight was just too much for her. Maybe that took power away from her. I don't know. I think she should have stayed at that weight, but then, she couldn't beat Rose. And so what do? I guess you got to move on. What we haven't talked about is Rose. And if anyone deserves respect, and if anyone has really upped the ante in women's MMA, which is to say MMA in general, just to say MMA period, it is Rose, and we have to talk about Namajunas and what she's done for the sport. So go with that. Tell me about that.
No, it's a great subject to wrap up on, because here's what I look at is a lot of these ladies, a lot of these guys, you start with a story and, the story starts to be the same story over and over. And I don't want to generalize or put people down, but a lot of it is, I fell in love with the sport and I trained this or that, the other stuff. And so what sets you apart sometimes is the background story, how unique, some of that is. And then at the same time, sometimes you've got great background stories and stuff like that, and the fighting just doesn't hold up, right? So Rose is an interesting character to me because she's lived a very public career. You know what I mean? She's had her ups and downs and stresses on the mind, and she's made statements that you very much understand when she's like she doesn't like fighting.
Right.
And things like that. You have to be around the game to understand when someone says that, what it means. You know what I mean? So to her, I think it's a very personal thing, the motivations to do what she does and things like that. And I think that sets her apart and makes her very special. I think the story of, with her MMA boyfriend and stuff like that, that's stock stuff. I think what makes her interesting is the vulnerability she shows, as a human being. So to me, I think Rose is a standout thing. And Rose, she came through the TV show, didn't win the TV show thing, but she was always marked as somebody with potential and stuff like that. And she's starting to meet that potential, and that's nice to see about her. Hopefully, she gets some rewards and things like that in terms of money and things, and she's able to be happy and comfortable. But I think that's one of the things where when you give people props in MMA, to take a champion like Joanna and take her down and do it again, that's the stuff that legacies are made of. You know what I mean? That's what sets you apart from the field. So, Rose, my hat's off to you.
So do you know where Rose goes next?
The UFC's got a lot of talent at those weight classes. At this point,
I mean, it's full.
With Joanne moving up.
Is it Godella? I mean, what happens with that?
Yeah, it'll probably be the Brazilian girl.
Claudia is super tough, but she's not a complete fighter. But she can take Rose down, and she can suffocate her, and she can beat Rose easier than she can beat Joanna, and then that opens up.
I think Rose.
Joanna coming back down. So
let it shape itself out in that weight class. I mean, you can't be looking for super fights for everybody. Rose is marketable. In a counterculture kind of way. She's pretty. I don't like to say, oh, the girl's pretty, so she's marketable. It's not about that. But like I said, she's got a character, a vulnerability about her that makes her appealing, I think. So I think, but I don't think you want to rush her into, an evening with Rose and put her in like a reality series or anything like that.
Yeah.
No. I think you put her to work and you tell her, look, you're not your 15-pound champion. Keep the belt. We'll go on a run.
Sure.
And we'll see what materializes. But there's plenty of competition.
Yeah, I really like the fact that she doesn't, put on the lipstick and do the pretty headshot and all of that stuff. In fact, she seems to have gone exactly against that and said, in fact, I'm going to shave my head so that I don't get cast in that, that pretty role where I have to paint my nails and put my dress on and come in my bikini and all of that stuff. She intentionally goes against the grain on that. And I really appreciate that about her, that she can be feminine and at the same time not have to sell herself out as some kind of sexual commodity. And that's important to point out about her, and it's important to point out about all of these women that they're not sexual commodities. But over and over again, we see the UFC try to sexualize them and make them a sexual commodity. And it's not just the UFC, it's just sports in general. There's cheerleaders and then there are athletes. And, to me, cheerleaders are athletes. They don't, but to be a cheerleader, you have to be cute and you have to be pretty and all of that stuff. And man, cheerleading is fucking hard and it's dangerous and it's crazy stuff. I wouldn't do it. I mean, I'd be scared to death.
I understand what you're saying. Look, this podcast started about the women, and so let's go full circle. We're giving credit to the women. Just the fact that we ran long, just the fact that we brought up numerous elite women on this podcast that we didn't even plan on talking about when we started it.
Right.
Shows fucking deep the sport is on the women's side, that women and little girls should back, these ladies up and watch it. It's compelling. It's strong. And even the men, the men are always going to look at it with a grain of salt. The men are always, men that don't compete, are going to look at women that compete and still be like, whatever. There's always machismo and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you can separate it, the fact is they're fighting a sport at an elite level. I'd rather watch women's MMA than women's baseball or anything like that, because I think the women in MMA have a closer level to the men because of technique and practice and what you can do.
Absolutely.
That watch women play football. It's not that fun. Tackle football or anything like that. Watch them play in lycra outfits and tops that are kind of loose and stuff like that, and with the cameras doing stuff. People will watch it, but you're not watching football anymore. You know what I mean?
I don't know about that, but
the lingerie league.
You can watch women's MMA almost like you're watching men's MMA and judge it just on technique and character of the fighters, and you'd be watching an elite sport. You're not watching something inferior because it's a women. And I think that really deserves a hats off on the work that from Holly Holm on down, every woman we mentioned has done.
Yeah, I don't want to diminish anything that you said there. I do want to say that there is a real women's football league where women actually play football and they play actual tackle football, where they don't just do it to like I don't know what you call that, lingerie league or whatever it's called. For whatever that's worth, I know a girl who plays in it. That's why I know about it.
Let me ask you, which one of the two is on TV?
Yeah, exactly. And I agree. I agree with what you're saying. I'm not trying to diminish what you're saying. I just wanted to give them notice that it is there. I want to make that known. But I don't watch either one of them. But I do watch women's MMA, and I do watch women grappling. I think it's fantastic. And I train with women in MMA and in grappling when I was still training. I haven't trained since my wreck, but hopefully I'll get back to it. And, you learn an awful lot from training with people who are smaller than you. And so there are an awful lot of black belt women out there today who are teaching classes, who are teaching men how to do jiu-jitsu. And there are some men who don't like that. And I'm not going to learn from some woman. And they go out and they get tapped out 2 or 3 times by her. And they decide, maybe, So it's a real ego blast to them. And that's a good thing sometimes for these guys. So anyways, hey, I've loved this one. I thought this was an awesome podcast, and I hope people will tune in and check it out. I hope they will check out some of the other stuff we brought up. Hook and Shoot Revolution, which is the first women's MMA full MMA show ever. And they started it all. And a great deal of the women that came through the first women's tough actually came from hook and shoot. And a lot of the Invicta women came from the hook and shoot stuff back in the day. It's a real honor to have been able to have talked about this. And hopefully we'll be able to have some of them on sometime pretty soon. So we're going to have to start having guests as soon as we hit like podcast 50 or something like that, and we get all this other stuff worked out. Anything else you've got to say before we go, Miguel?
No, like I said, I think we should dedicate every so often, touch on the women's fights. Definitely we should do Joanna and Shevchenko, and also an Amanda and Cyborg podcast as we get closer to that. So, namaste.
Namaste.